the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James, joined once again by my co-host Cody. Cody, how are you on this final Victory Monday?
James, I am doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. We beat the Browns. I'm doing good. It was a good week. It was a good weekend. Just having fun, being young. No offense, bro. No offense. How are you doing, James? How are you doing?
Wow, bro. Wow. All right.
Listen,
shots fired. You woke up and chose violence.
I did. Remember that. Let's just remember this today. Let's remember, I think it was on our Facebook memories just a few days ago that you tagged me in something saying that you were old enough to be my dad because you got questioned to be my dad when we went out to the gas station one time.
So, I mean, it's fair.
Just saying, old man.
The way this beard looks these days, it's within question for sure.
You just need to get that gut going and you can play Santa now.
Oh, boy, it's bigger than you can tell on this pod. That's why I'm sitting down and it's not a long shot, buddy.
Fair enough.
But anyway, I'm doing well. It's Victory Monday. We would have loved to have been in the playoffs, but with that complete curb stomping of the Cleveland Browns, I'm just gonna say cheers to you.
I got my water.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Cheers to my Pittsburgh Steelers. You went and you took care of business. Some things were just out of your control. Nothing you can do about that, but you had one task at hand. That was go ahead and dominate the Cleveland Browns, and they did exactly that.
And it should have been worse. It should have. They had a 14-point swing. A 14-point swing. Worse. It should have been freaking 42? No, hang on. Math. 28, 35. Yeah, it should have been 42 to 14 or whatever
or 7, really.
Yeah.
7, because one of those was
okay, so 35 to 7. 35 to 7 is what it should have been.
Deontay catches that other one, you're talking 42.
Can't Connor Hayward catches that other one. No, I'm just kidding. We scored on that drive.
Yeah.
So, let's get right into it. Before the game, Steelers elevated defensive tackle Ronell Wren for game day. We've seen this a couple weeks now so far. So that's the news. That's about all the news. Oh, of course, and the inactives. But let's talk about Wren real quick.
Yeah, and I have a take on this. I think there's a reason why Pittsburgh elevated him the last 2 weeks in a row, but did not actually play him either week. I think probably they would have if somebody would have gotten injured, but nobody got injured. I want to see what your take is on it, though. I'm curious as to whether or not we're on the same mindset on this. You know me, sometimes my tinfoil hat's on a little bit too tight, a little overthinking things sometimes. So I want to see what your opinion is on this.
You never know, James. We could be thinking the same thing. So my initial thought with this is he's being elevated for game day. That's preventing him from being picked up by other teams. That's keeping him on the team. All this stuff about retaining him, retaining. We know that a couple guys are going to be in the free agency pool this offseason. A lot of the defensive linemen is actually going to be there. With that being said, I also think that Pittsburgh is looking at all the things. They're looking at the draft. They're looking at players they're scouting. They're looking at things that they need to prepare for. They need a corner. They probably need a safety. Terrell Edmonds isn't the answer long term. We know that. They need another middle linebacker. They potentially need more offensive line. They probably need another wide receiver with Deontay Johnson not catching the ball every freaking time. So they're looking at all these things and thinking, okay, what do we have to do? Where do we need to go? And I think that they're taking a chance on someone that they already have. They have in the room. They're getting to see the capabilities, and the coaches are working with them. I don't know that this is necessarily saying they like what they see. They obviously have to like it to a certain degree. He's still on the team. But I think that they're preparing to, hey, what if this is a position we can't target as aggressively as we want to in the offseason, or we don't retain the guys we want to retain from our team? This at least gives us another body in the room. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing on it is that last year you were able to protect 4 players off the practice squad every week. This year you could not. So people could poach people. Other teams could poach players off your practice squad anytime they want to. They just have to sign them to their own 53-man roster. So by elevating them the last 2 weeks, that protects them from being poached by another team off of their roster onto another team. So now he's untouchable through the entire offseason. assuming they sign him to a futures contract. But like you were mentioning there, we got Tyson Alualu, Larry Ogunjobi, and Chris Wormley all on expiring contracts. I expect none of those three to be back personally. If any of them, maybe Chris Wormley, just because you can probably get him fairly cheap. I really wasn't impressed with Ogunjobi over the course of the season. I expected a lot more than what we got out of him. And Alualu just seems like he's ready for retirement, and let's let him go ahead and retire. But to me, you're looking at basically Cam Hayward coming back, Montravius Adams as the only nose tackle, and he wasn't a dominant one by any means. He was adequate at best, really. And then you've got DeMarvin Leal, who looks like almost he might be more of an outside linebacker than a defensive end. We're not really sure. And that just leaves Isaiah Loudermilk. So it's a really, really thin group with Cam Hayward and a bunch of young, unproven guys. And I feel like that just gets another young, unproven body in the room with the right size, height, weight, strength kind of stuff. He's a 6'5", 315, big-bodied dude. He was a former fourth-round pick. It's a pedigree guy, too. There's no reason not to bring him back and get a good long look at him in the preseason. Like you said, I think they're going to add to this room in other ways. They're probably going to add with a high draft pick, hopefully within the first three rounds. Probably in free agency, too. I wouldn't be surprised with a nose tackle in free agency. Not enough bodies, and this helps a little bit more by protecting this young man. So,
yeah,
low-key move, but I think a good one at the same point in time because you never know what you can develop.
Yep, I agree with you completely. Absolutely. Inactives for the game: Mason Rudolph, Trey Norwood, Malik Reed, Kendrick Green, Tay Crowder, and defensive tackle Jonathan Marshall. Those were the inactives before the game. So let's go ahead and start this game. First and foremost, I want to talk about the first drive.
Let's do it.
I was very frustrated, and James got to hear a lot about it in text messages because, and this is my reasoning, and if you guys are listening, feel free to comment on the video if you're watching on YouTube or message us or comment on Facebook, whatever. Let me know your opinion. All year, your team has struggled to get it in the end zone early and often, especially on those opening drives. Most of them were punts. And if you got down the field occasionally, you were lucky if you got a field goal. Your team comes out and has a phenomenal first drive. You get down to the goal line, and you have a run play on first down. Najee Harris, the offensive lineman, all stand up saying touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. They say, nope, call it short on the yard line. And Najee looks over and does this, looking right at Coach Tomlin, looking him dead in the eyes. You know where he was looking. There's nowhere else to look.
Yeah.
And they don't challenge the play. They show the replay. You clearly can tell that Najee scored a touchdown on the play. It wasn't even close. Ran second down, didn't get anywhere. Ran a third down play. Najee tries to jump over the pile, fumble. Cleveland has the ball. My frustration with this, obviously, yes, the refs got it wrong. It was a hard view of the play. I get that. I'm not holding too much against the refs. That's a bang, bang play. Here's the thing. If you call that a touchdown, you can review it. All scoring plays get reviewed. That's the hard part with that situation. Quite frankly, I think the NFL should at this point just review most of the plays in the red zone at least.
If they're close like that, I mean,
I feel like you should. If you want the game to be good like that, allow that to be up in New York or somewhere else, and they say it was a touchdown or it wasn't. That would have taken all of 5 seconds. I understand you want the game to move smoothly and this and that, but that's a game-changing play potentially on the first drive. My frustration is with Mike Tomlin, and it's a very high frustration. When you have your team that has struggled all year to score on opening drives, has struggled to get in the end zone on any drive, and then your running back, who is a very good man, he's like, I'm not saying that matters a lot, but Najee is a hard worker, and you know what I'm saying? Like, Najee was like, I was in. Tomlin, you need to show your players that you have their back, you believe in them, and you believe what they're telling you, and you need to throw that red flag. With how adamant they were that he scored, throw that red flag, show your support, get your team that touchdown on the board, and you're up 7-0 right off the bat rather than going down 7-0 like what happened. So
I truly wish they would have challenged it because I felt even in live play, it was extremely obvious to me that he was able to get the ball across the plane into the end zone. I kind of understand to a degree because that decision to go for it on second down was made like immediately. I don't think the coaching staff got to even see a replay inside the stadium before they had already sent the next play out there. And part of that is that they've had so much success on the QB sneak this year, especially in situations where they rush it and don't allow the defense to get prepared for it.
Yep.
So I almost feel like it was Tomlin saying, "Oh, okay, you're going to screw me. I'm not going to let you get ready for the next play. Good luck." Because he knows his success rate on that play this year has been like 95%. It just so happens that the Browns were able to act tough and get stout on the inside and stuff it. And then worst case scenario with that fumble on third down. I was frustrated as well, and it was the lack of challenge. I was more frustrated that the referees missed, to me, what was such an obvious touchdown. I didn't think it was close at all.
His knee got close to the ground, but once you rewatched it, you could tell it didn't get very close.
The entire football was past the end zone, like the entire thing. It wasn't like just the nose; the whole thing was in the end zone. So it kind of put a real bad taste in my mouth on the refereeing right out of the gate of this game.
Yep.
And there were some calls that went both ways. But I felt that personally, Cleveland really got a big assist a number of times in this game that helped them. And right out at the gate, it should be 7-0, but it's negated by refereeing, which is an awful way to start the game off.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat to you on it with a little bit more understanding on why he made the decision that he did, just because of the previous success of the play that was called and put in there.
Yep, it makes sense. I get it. With that being said, I don't want to linger on that too much. I also want to backstep just a hair. We forgot to do this a little bit. Damar Hamlin, we didn't get the chance to talk about him. Damar Hamlin is back in Buffalo, was released from the hospital in Cincinnati today. So prayers still for him in the recovery process, but just a cool thing for all that to go. And then even the cooler thing, real quick, again, just a little pause in our show here talking about the Steelers football. If you didn't get a chance to watch the interview with Josh Allen after the Bills game, go watch it. It was a good interview. Josh Allen talked about the opening kick return for a touchdown against the New England Patriots, and he said it just felt, magical or whatever. And he goes on to say, God's real, which is cool to me, being a believer. But when you look at the stats and you look at everything, and then the coach told him it's been 3 years and 3 months since the Bills have had a kickoff return for a touchdown, and Damar Hamlin happens to be number 3. He got a little emotional, to say the least. So it was a great time. Good interview.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
So again, we're very happy for Damar Hamlin and on his journey to recovery that he is heading back to Buffalo to be with his family and his teammates and all that stuff, and to be with them as they prepare for playoff football. So
I'll tell you what, Cody, I'm hearing now that there's actually a possibility of a full recovery for him and a return to football.
Yep.
Which is incredible, man. Not enough can be said about those first responders there and everyone else that had their hands in helping him return to health.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely incredible. Speaking of returning to health, let's talk about the Steelers offense. Because this is one of the biggest performances of the entire season as far as points scored by Pittsburgh. So just an absolutely incredible move in the right direction, if you ask me.
Yeah. So Kenny Pickett starting off the bat, not his best game, but I still think we got to see a lot of good growth out of him. And again, I'm going to go over the numbers the same way I did last time, which we'll get to that. Kenny Pickett, 13 of 29 for 195 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Great. I love the yardage. We can win in a divisional game with that kind of yardage passing. And then we can also win when you're not turning the ball over. The 0 interceptions is what really matters to me right there. I thought Kenny Pickett did play well. I thought late in the game he was putting balls where they needed to be. Players were or were not catching them. That was just the way it was. We got to see a lot of ability for him to escape a sack and get away from players and stuff like that and extending the plays. I loved seeing what we did. The 1 third down play when he made a falling pass to Jaylen Warren, and Jaylen Warren managed to get a first down on that play, make a guy miss. Phenomenal play from both Kenny Pickett and Jaylen Warren. Was really happy with Kenny and his growth throughout the season, but even in this game as the game went on.
Yeah, you almost have to say it's a tale of two halves as far as the seasons. First half, Kenny, and then second half of the season, Kenny, completely different guy. Almost never turned the ball over in the second half of the season, as to where he had 6 turnovers in 2 games in the first half of the season. He had 2-3 interception games. And then the second half, we saw maybe 1 or 2 interceptions in the last 9 games. So incredible turnaround. I think everything else will come with time. And also depending on who you throw the ball to, right? Because certain guys only caught 20% of the balls thrown their way. And it's tough to have a really high completion percentage when your so-called number 1 receiver is playing like a number 4 or 5.
Yep.
So that, and again, dropping balls in the end zone and not keeping his feet in bounds in the end zone. And,
Yep. Yeah, and here
you expect more out of a professional.
Yes, and here I'll get into it right now because we kind of already did. We can talk about the running backs after the fact.
Let's go wide receivers and then hit the running backs.
Yeah, so Deontay Johnson, 2 receptions for 38 yards, 19 average. That's phenomenal. It'd be a phenomenal stat line if he had 2 targets, but he didn't. He had 10.
If it was 1 quarter's worth of play, maybe.
Yeah, it was 10. He had 10 targets on the day, caught 2 of them. Dropped one. Dropped
a couple.
He dropped a lot. I can think of 4 off the top of my head. But with that being said,
didn't win a contested catch all game, did he?
Nope.
Not a single one.
If you take away his stats, right now Kenny Pickett's sitting right over 33. He's like 40% completion roughly.
44 on the game, 45 almost.
40. Okay, so 44. You take away just the Johnson drops and even receptions, he's sitting at 11 of 29, which is over 50%.
11 of
19, excuse me. 11 of 19. Yeah, because 13 to 29,
so
11
now you're
of 19.
talking about 60% completion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Deontay's hurt, and it doesn't, the stats don't matter. We'll get to that. Like, whatever. You want your rookie to have good stats. Every player wants to have good stats. It's not about the stats. It's the fact that you're making other players look bad because you're dropping the ball, because you're not doing your part. And here's the thing. I've gone back and forth a long time about, are we being too hard on Deontay? Is Deontay in his own head? Did he have a bad year? Did this or that? Deontay just sucks, man. I'm putting it out there. Deontay's clutch ability, and this is something you've said, Deontay's not clutch. Deontay has not a clutch bone in his body. He doesn't. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm a diehard Steelers fan. Clearly, we have a podcast. We're analyzing the game. We're analyzing players. We're analyzing their play. Deontay sucks. How many times has he dropped balls? How many times has he... What are you doing with all your Steelers stuff?
We're big Steelers fans. Deontay's horrible, man.
I don't know what else to say. How many times do you give up on plays and allow your quarterback to get intercepted on? And it didn't just happen to Kenny. It happened to Big Ben. It happened to a Hall of Famer. You were giving zero effort for a Hall of Fame quarterback. How many times have you chosen to not block on a play? Like, it's just, it's not even his ability as a player. It is his effort. It is his motivation. It's just not there.
How do you let a safety track you down on your way to the end zone? We're not talking about like a 4-3 flat safety. Like, that should have been a touchdown on that first drive. He gets run down at like the 2-yard line, and then they end up not punching it in.
How many times have we seen him catch a ball for a first down and then run backwards and not get the first down?
He did it in this game, and he was very lucky that they called it an incomplete pass. He caught the ball, ran backwards. They knocked the ball out. It looked like a sure fumble to me. You nailed it and told me, hey, man, this is incomplete.
No way.
He didn't take enough steps. Boy, was it close. Was it close, man. It was like 3 steps, but he needed 3 steps in a football move.
Yep.
He got away with it on a technicality.
It's just unfortunate to see a wide receiver that I think has the skill. I think he has the ability to do it. He wouldn't be in the NFL if he didn't. He wouldn't be a number 1 or 2 wide receiver on a team if he didn't. They wouldn't have traded Chase Claypool away if they didn't believe he has the ability.
Yeah.
He just has no self-motivation or freaking I don't even know, bro.
He's got to figure it out, man. He's got to figure out where the end zone is and how to keep his feet inside of it. He's got to figure out where the sidelines are and keep his feet inside of it. And he's got to figure out which way is going forward and which way is going backwards.
And he has to remember how to hold a ball when you catch it.
Yeah, all those three things have been major issues this year. And I swear this year, people are going to point at his drops and be like, yeah, the drop percentage isn't that bad. They were all in the end zone or on third down, every single one of them. He didn't drop a ball on first or second down. Always on third down or always in the end zone.
Yep, pretty much. And that's probably not an actual fact. He might have dropped one or two on first or second down.
I don't think he did.
But James is being passionate right now, and that's fine. But a massive – he ended the season with 0 touchdowns. And not due to lack of opportunity.
Catches?
Not due to lack of opportunity.
86 catches? Like almost 900 yards, maybe over 900 yards. I don't know. Like, what are we doing here, man? Just by accident, you should have been able to get in the end zone once.
I want you to continue talking about these wide receivers real quick while I look something up. Just go ahead.
I'm going to move on. Let's talk about a guy that has all the promise in the world and seems to have all the clutch factor in the world, and that's George Pickens, man. In this game, 3 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Every catch was absolute money. On the sideline, contested catch, over the middle, knowing exactly where the weak spot is in a defense. The guy just gets it. And Kenny trusts him. He knows he can throw it to him, and he's going to win those combat catches. You have to feel really good about the season George Pickens had as a rookie. You have to feel about the promise going forward. You have to feel good about the connection that he has with his starting quarterback and what we should be seeing from the two of them for the next 3 years as they play together, hopefully for a lot longer than that. We'll see what the next few years hold for George Pickens, but you have to feel really good about how good of a year it was for him. And again, 1 touchdown pass in the game went to George Pickens.
Yep. So
led the team in touchdown catches, right? 4 catches.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody else had more.
I don't think so. So going down the list of stats, like leaders and stats for this year's NFL stats, the receiving leaders and everything. Going off of receptions, going in order of receptions, greatest receptions to least. Deontay had, let me see this again. It's right here. Deontay had the 15th most receptions, so top 15 in receptions.
So that's really good.
Had 0 touchdowns. We've already been over that. If you exclude the one player in the top 40 who had 1 touchdown because he was a running back, not even a receiver, and then you go down for whoever was the next person with 0 touchdowns, it's also a running back at number 60, Saquon Barkley. The next guy down is also another running back with Josh Jacobs at 69. And then finally, you get to Khalif Raymond, the 84th overall in receptions with 47, who happened to have 0, who was in a Detroit offense that was mostly run offense this year anyways.
And Amon-Ra St. Brown. They just like...
And Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you go down, and the next guy at 0 is Michael Carter, who is a running back for the Jets. And then you go down and you see a Ben Skowronek, a wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams, who I don't even know how to say, who had 39 receptions.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
You're as good as a no-name player. He had 39 receptions. He caught as many touchdown passes as you did.
Yeah.
And guess what? He only averaged 1 yard less per reception than you.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what?
People were complaining about Juju last year. Man, I'd give anything to have Juju's stats from last year versus what we got out of Deontay this year.
His catch percentage on targets, I'm not, because obviously you can't go over drops because we can't know the I mean, you probably could. I don't know this.
Yeah,
list.
it's all objective with drops. That's the tough part on it.
So let's see. If we do his stat number, he caught 58% of the balls passed to him.
Wow.
So in other words, he missed almost half of them. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. When you look at the top guys in the NFL who are getting paid like they should be, I'm just gonna go top 3 just out of curiosity. Top 3 receivers. 69.5% catch percentage from Justin Jefferson. Okay.
All right. Seems pretty good.
70% catch reception from Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce is up there, but I'm not going to do his numbers because he's a tight end. The next
do me
guy,
a favor and do George Pickens for me. Try to find George Pickens on this list.
I can do
And let's
that.
see what his catch percentage is. I'm also very curious as to what Pat Fryermuth's catch percentage is. I'm betting both of them are way higher than what we got out of Deontay. I'm going to move down the list while you're trying to chase those numbers for me real quick. Connor Hayward, I think, is the next guy we should talk about in the receiving game because Connor brought his A game in this game here.
64.2 for Pat Fryermuth.
All right, so we're already talking 6% better than Deontay Johnson.
Okay, continue on.
And then George Pickens, our next one on that list. Connor really put together a really nice game as a receiver. Pat Fryermuth went down injured in this game. We did find out, I'm going to do the spoiler on it now, this is an ACL or MCL sprain. He lucked out on this one, not a complete tear. He's not going to require surgery. So this is something that when in a matter of a couple of months, Fryermuth should be in pretty good shape again and ready to go, and we'll definitely be ready by the time spring and summer ball comes around.
62% for George Pickens.
Wow, so both of them are a decent amount higher.
Yep.
4% for George and 6% for Pat.
Yeah. But and 4% on a like that he got half as many passes thrown to him.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, I mean it's 84 to 147. So that is what it is.
So, yeah, I was going on about Connor Hayward having a real nice game. He had one in the end zone that he could have probably caught for a touchdown, but it was a difficult catch a little bit behind him, unable to squeeze his hands. But I felt like difficulty at catch for Connor was very high in this game, and he kept on bringing them in, man.
Yeah, two in a row on the sidelines.
Yeah. Yep, and drastically like over his head, thrown for a 6'6" guy, but he went up and got it, and he's only 6 foot. I was impressed with him, man. And this is what his tape said. His tape said this is a guy with really good hands coming out of the backfield or going out as a tight end, however you want to use him. Also, Zach Gentry got himself a nice catch for 23 yards.
Yep.
Really helped move the chains and sustain a drive there as well. So nice to see some involvement from him. And you kind of hope that he gets brought back next year. I know Zach didn't make a huge impact on the offense, but you do feel like his progression from year to year has steadily increased in what he may be able to be next season with another offseason. Who knows?
Yeah. So let's
I'd
look
like
at
to
this.
see it in Pittsburgh.
So, and I'm not trying to be on the Deontay Johnson smackdown train right now, although it's happening.
Yeah.
Looking at even just this game number wise, if you subtract Pat Fryermuth, who went out with an injury, Jaylen Warren caught 75% of passes thrown his way. Najee Harris caught 100%. Zach Gentry caught 100%. Connor Hayward caught 75%, and George Pickens caught 50%. Deontay Johnson 20.
Yeah.
That tells you everything. This one stat game can tell you everything you need to know about the wide receiver situation. So let's move. Do you want to move on to running backs?
Yeah, let's head back to the running backs before we go over to the defensive side of the ball, and we'll probably touch on the O-line a little bit as well. A little bit. So running game was good, man. I'm not going to call it like completely dominant, but they were able to continue moving the ball all game long. Jaylen Warren really put a nice effort in off of the bench in this game. And Najee just kept on pounding the rock all game long, man. Positive yards almost every single play. Again, lacking the long run, but that's kind of Najee's style. He isn't really the guy that busts loose for some big, long runs. But what he does is punish you. And we saw it early in this game when he stiff-armed Miles Garrett to the ground as if he was like a 180-pound cornerback. So just interesting to see the matchups, how this went. And when Miles had a fair fight against somebody also highly skilled, man, it didn't go so well for him when he didn't get the cherry pick his matchup, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about that now?
Yeah, let's talk about it, man. I want to put it out there because I've been saying this for years now. And Browns fans have always been like, no, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. But here's the truth of it. Jadeveon Clowney was interviewed by Mary Kay Cabot. And what he said is you guys are trying to worry about getting somebody into the Pro Bowl, but there's 11 guys on defense. He put it out there, and he said Miles Garrett is getting the easiest matchup every single week, and he's sick of it. They asked him, do you think he's coming back? He said, I'm 95% sure I'm not coming back next year. Why would he come back? He's getting the toughest matchup every single week.
Yep.
Miles getting the easiest one every single week. Where'd he line up this week? Opposite Dan Moore Jr. every single snap. When I watch him play, I see him move all over the place depending on where the weak spot is on the opposing team's offensive line. Sometimes on the right, sometimes on the left. On games where people have bad guard play, he lines up a lot on the inside on pass rushing downs.
And there's an aspect of that I understand, but it's more of an offensive. It happens more on offense than it does defense. On offense, you're looking for mismatches. On defense, however, you typically have guys that are good in their specific situations or their specific roles, and they have to play who they're up against. And sometimes you have the battle of the best on the best. Miles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns just don't want Miles Garrett to go up against the best. They want him to look better than what he actually is. They want him to pad his stats. They're trying to get him into the Hall of Fame, this, that, and the other. And you know what? They're probably losing games because of this. Because you have other guys on the team that are getting drained their energy-wise. They don't get a break. And Miles Garrett's just going over there, getting keeping his energy high.
They're losing buy-in. They're losing buy-in from the other players because they see it. They're not dumb. They're not naive. Why do you want to go out there and bust your hump when your coaches are literally putting you in the position to have the least likely chance of success every single week and cherry picking someone else to try to have the best chance of success every single week? And this guy played with him for 2 years.
Hang on. The Browns coaching staff is calling in right now, actually. Hang on 1 second.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Thank you for the update. We know. I'm still a piece of garbage.
I'm still a sack of garbage. Yes. I knew it. I love it.
So,
and they're minus their defensive coordinator. They fired him already.
We don't care. Cleveland. You guys are just so stinking bad at this football thing.
Oh, yeah. And then in contrast, you see Cam Hayward lining up in the same spot all game long. Opposite Joel Bitonio, their best offensive lineman. What'd he do? Got himself 2 sacks.
Yep.
So he didn't cherry pick the matchup against the worst offensive lineman on the other team. He went against the best one and had better production.
Shocking.
And he's not even our best pass rusher.
Shocking. No, and our best pass rusher only had a sack on the game. Or is he our best pass rusher at this point? We don't know.
Starting to wonder. 14.5 is a hell of a total for Highsmith, man. And real quick, before we go full transition into the Steelers defense, Steelers offensive line had a pretty nice game. Overall, not a ton of pressure allowed. Dan Moore did get beat once by Miles Garrett, but we all know Miles loves that matchup. His first game against Dan Moore, he absolutely brutalized him last year. Dan did a lot better the second game, and then by now, Dan's holding his own against him. So you're going to lose once in a while in a matchup like that when you're talking about a fourth-round offensive tackle versus a high first-round pick. But Dan held his own for the most part, and I feel like the offensive line in general did a pretty good job on this game. But not as good as that defensive front seven did. That's for sure. We really got to see what these guys were made of in this game. They held the rushing attack without really going off on Pittsburgh. Honestly, I only felt like there was one guy who didn't have the greatest game. Unfortunately, that was Mark Robinson. He got a lot of playing time early, missed a few tackles. They removed him from the game and played a lot of Miles Jack after that. And it seemed like Miles had a little bit better nose for the ball. Miles is a little bit better at just coming to balance before trying to tackle somebody, as to where Mark Robinson was looking to rip somebody's head off, which is great if you make full contact and take him down, but he wasn't. He kept on missing. So
getting a little ahead of himself. He had a good first game, and I think that got to his head just a little bit to where he was playing with a little higher level of confidence than what he should have. Put him in some bad situations. That's all.
Sometimes you got to break down.
Yeah, I expect that to be
break down before the tackle.
So obviously the front seven did very well. When you leave a game with 7 sacks, it's a solid performance to say the least. Looking at the secondary, when your secondary winds up getting 2 interceptions, we take those.
Absolutely. And, I should have checked before we started the game. Maybe this is something you can find while we're talking about this. But when Pittsburgh got that second interception, we got one out of DeMonte KZ, and then later on in the game, one from
Levi
Levi
Wallace.
Wallace. That put Pittsburgh to 20 interceptions on the year, which put them number one in the NFL for team interceptions at the time. Now, 4:00 games hadn't happened yet. The night game hadn't happened yet. So I don't know how those turned out, how many interceptions those teams got, and whether or not anybody passed Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh possibly did end up with that title. Also, I don't know if anybody passed Minka.
4-way tie for first with Minka at 6.
Nice. So Minka ended up tying for first place in the NFL in interceptions with 6 interceptions. What an incredible year for this secondary, man. 6 picks by Minka, 4 by Levi Wallace, 3 by Cam Sutton. You had 1 from Arthur Mollett, 2 from KZ. Just a really nice, well-balanced group effort there as far as the interceptions. And it looks like you might have an answer on who finished first in the NFL in interceptions as a
Two-way tie for first.
Pittsburgh and Dallas?
Nope. Dallas wasn't even top 5.
No, who was the other team?
San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, okay. Talanoa Hufanga. I can be okay with that.
Yep. And only 1 interception touchdown for Pittsburgh. Could have easily been 2, but Minka just playing for the team, not himself. So we'll take that for sure.
So the first year Pittsburgh doesn't lead the NFL in sacks in 5 years. They lead the NFL in interceptions. So you know what? It's a new secondary. It's a new defense. I'll take it, but I do feel that there's a really strong chance that Pittsburgh's going to put a high draft pick.
But that's my point.
Front.
We led in interceptions with a mediocre secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Not including Minka, it's mediocre at best. Not including Minka, it's mediocre at best. Like, that's that's crazy, and I think that shows what having the solid, like, the defensive front forced how many of those interceptions. Let's be real. And then on top of that, the just the presence of Minka forced how many interceptions, because you had to throw somewhere else that there probably wasn't as good of a matchup, or it was probably tighter coverage, but you're still like, I'd rather throw here than throw to Minka, even though this 5 yards of space here and only 1 here. Like, it's crazy what can happen when you can put guys in situations like that.
Yep, absolutely, man. Put some guys in some nice situations. Cam Sutton really put together a nice year. It's going to be very interesting to see how hard Pittsburgh goes after attempting to retain him, because I don't think it'll be cheap.
No.
I don't think it'll be cheap. I think he was double digits on pass breakups and 3 interceptions on the season. That's not something that just any corner does. And I'm not saying that I think he's a number 1, because I still don't. But I think he's a really good number 2. And I think we saw that Levi Wallace is a capable number 2 as well this year.
Yep.
The question
when
remains,
he stays healthy.
Yeah. Who's the number 1?
Yep.
Is Akello Witherspoon able to come back and become that number 1? We were hoping he would this year, and it just didn't happen.
Is something going to happen with William Jackson?
They got him practicing again before the season ended, but we never got to see him in a game. What's going to happen? Are they going to bring these guys back in the offseason? I think so. I think we'll see them both back, but hopefully Cam Sutton as well. That'd be a real nice group of 4 if that were the case. But
it would be. It would be.
Let's talk about the special teams from this game, Cody.
Yeah, so special teams wise, you had Chris Boswell, Boz for president, 2 for 2 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. Game. We take that from Boswell.
You know what's ironic is in previous years, it seemed like Boz would miss 3 or 4 extra points every season. This year, he was perfect on extra points and just struggled with his field goals. He flip-flopped it. I'd rather have the field goals.
Yeah.
But okay. At least he was perfect somewhere on the season, and he straightened it out on the final week. Gives you a little more confidence going into the season. I also feel we should have more confidence going on Presley Harvin III. He had a really nice end of the season. He had a nice performance in this game. Season. When you look at his total season numbers, he got that total net yards on the punt up around like 44.5, 45 yards per punt. Almost a third of his punts were touchbacks. I'm sorry, not touchbacks, but inside the 20-yard line. He put some nice numbers together, and I really felt like gave us enough at the end of the season, in the second half of the season, to feel a lot more confident about him going into next season. So I'm a lot happier now with the special teams efforts of those two guys than I was probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think just both trending in the right directions. I always have faith in Boz, even when he's struggling, because I remember him having a season before where he missed 7 or 8 kicks, and then he came back the next year and missed only one the entire year. He was like 31 or 32 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything other than faith in Boz. But yeah, even Steven Sims doesn't look like a bad return, man. We'll see if they give him some competition. If maybe Calvin Austin III can give him a run next year, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, I do believe Presley Arvin had a good game. Obviously, one was inside the 20. I think it wound up being inside the 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. It was.
Yeah, and then Steven Sims on the 0 kick returns. They were all touchbacks, but 3 punt returns for 20 yards total, 6.7 average. Not horrible. That does it for the special teams. That does it for the game. Again, Pittsburgh wound up winning this game against Cleveland, 28-14 after going down 7-0 early. They wound up being 20-7 at one point, which was very impressive to see them come back and make that swing of scoring. Injuries, we talked about Pat Freiermuth. We also need to mention Gunnar Olszewski went out with an injury at some point in this game. I don't know the extent of that injury, unfortunately. But
looked like a knee for him too.
It did. It was a definite knee, but hopefully we can see some kind of update you guys, whether that be through Twitter or Facebook, if we see something pop up. Before we move on to talk after stuff, I want to finish this game off real quick by mentioning there was some stuff going on around on Twitter about the late in the game. I think it was the last sack we had. Alex Highsmith, one of the Steelers players came over. I don't even know who it was at this point. Came over and did the whole CPR celebration on his chest, pumped it 3 times. I personally don't believe that was done with ill intent. I don't believe that was done to pay respect either. I'll be honest. I don't think it was like 3 pumps for Damar Hamlin. I don't think any of that. I think they were just celebrating in a way that the teams have been celebrating for years, about pumping people's chests up when they do sacks or when they get sacks and stuff like that. To the point where I believe, James, you said that celebration is in Madden this year. I haven't played the game this year, but there was no ill intent. It was blown up by horrible fans who lack any kind of common sense to players celebrating and being happy for their team and this and that. Sure, will I admit that the timing, it was ill-timed? Do I admit that maybe the player got caught in the moment and didn't think appropriately in the situation? Sure, absolutely. I think if the player was thinking Damar Hamlin at that exact moment, I do not think that would have happened on the field. But unfortunately, They were in the heat of a moment against the division rival, having a really good game defensively to get 7 sacks, and they were celebrating with their teammates. I do not hold anything against them, and I am totally fine with that, and I want to get that out of the way because I was very passionate about against people who were so passionately saying that Pittsburgh is a horrible class act and this and that, disgusted,
completely classless.
Yeah.
I think if you're holding on to that, it's so obvious that you're just so hateful of Pittsburgh that it's not even funny. Because it's just as easy to say this is a horrible classless act as it is for me to say, well, they were just paying homage to the guys that just saved Damar Hamlin's life last week. Prove me otherwise.
Yeah. You want to talk about classless? You want to talk about classless? It was that Green Bay Packers player
first.
The Green Bay Packers player
first. That's classless.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers player that pushed the training staff when he came on the field this week.
Yeah, and then his former college teammate, who then also went after the trainer.
Yep.
Quay Walker, and then
I don't know the other guy.
Lineman. Yeah, the defensive lineman, both from Georgia.
And you want to know how I know some of the people, and it's some of the people are just Steelers haters because they shared that every time, but I haven't seen one of them say anything about Quay Walker.
Yeah. Attacks?
Come at me.
Yeah, attacks a medical staff person, and you got nothing to say on that?
Yep. We're gonna leave it there. We try to not talk about this kind of stuff too much, but when it's honestly disgraceful for the players that are having a good game and like I said, I'll admit that they probably weren't thinking in the moment, and I will admit that, and whatever. But to say that they're a classless act and they're disgusting, get over yourself. Get off your high horse.
Being a sore loser
and realize they were having fun.
Butt handed to you. Your team was literally getting murdered. They were trying to save you with CPR. Give it a rest.
Give it a rest. With that being said, draft position update. No, you know what? We're going to stop there. James, I want to go over something that I almost forgot. The end of the year. It's the end of the year. Yearly stats. Let's look at these real quick.
Okay, man.
Okay?
Yeah.
Completion, Kenny Pickett, 245 completions on 389 pass attempts with a 63% rating completion. Mitch Trubisky was 117 of 180 for 65. Slightly better completion percentage. Obviously, Kenny Pickett played more, had 2,400 yards compared to just over 1,200. They both averaged between 6 and 7 yards per pass attempt or per completion, whatever. Kenny averaged about 7 yards more per game, 6 yards more per game. Kenny threw 7 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Mitch threw 4 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Kenny was sacked 27 times. Mitch was only sacked 11 times. Again, not horrible. It's kind of whatever. The best QBR on the team came from Chase Claypool, 1 for 1 for a touchdown. He's not on the team anymore, whatever.
And let's be real, these numbers on Kenny Pickett are including a game that he got injured on the first drive and didn't complete a pass. So that's factoring into his yards per game, which horribly skews it in a negative direction. Not to mention he had 2 games that he only played a half.
Correct.
So it's basically taking 2 full games of play out of his average yards per game. So that's something to think about when you look at those numbers on there, is that it's when you take out the game that he was injured on the first drive and then pulled on the second drive, drastically better yards per game than that shows at the 184. But let's talk about this rushing team, man. So best player on the team, obviously, in the running game was Najee Harris this year. 272 attempts, 1,038 yards with a 3.8 yard average, 7 touchdowns, 2 fumbles. Real nice season for Najee. And it just got better as the year went on. You could tell that he was definitely dealing with an injury early on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you look at freaking Jalen Warren, the undrafted rookie, 77 attempts for 379 yards, averaging 4.9, almost 5 yards a carry, and had the 1 sole touchdown. And only 1 fumble, and that happened in this last game, if I'm not mistaken.
In the last game. Yeah, in the last game.
So phenomenal on him. Kenny Pickett, 55 attempts for 237, 4.3, 3 touchdowns, 3 fumbles. Luckily, lost none of those fumbles, so that's a plus. Ability to get the ball back. And then you got a couple of guys that I don't want to go through the entire list here. You got Benny Snell, Steven Sims.
But it's worth talking about Benny Snell, at least, with 20 carries, 90 yards, 4.5 yards a carry, and a touchdown.
Yep.
That was basically almost all in one game. So Benny did put together a nice performance this season, I thought. Very limited playing time, took full advantage of it and looked well. And although the numbers are not gaudy, Derek Watt, 9 carries, 21 yards, and a touchdown. 7 for 8 on third down conversions, and then also converted a touchdown on one of the other attempts.
Yep.
So basically 8 of the 9 rushes were successful rushes.
Correct.
Either
For what the
converting
goal
a
was.
first down or converting a touchdown.
Yep.
Which is absolutely incredible. And Cody and I talked about this briefly before the podcast, but we're definitely going to throw it out there now. We're okay with them bringing Derek back, man. I was opposed to it. I was all on board with moving forward, switching Connor Hayward over to fullback. Derek's success with the offense was excellent this year. He wasn't used that much, but it was drastically more than last year.
And Connor's success with where he's currently at.
Yeah.
Let's be real. And we're gonna get to that. We'll get to that at some point. I don't want to forget George Pickens, 3 rushes for 24 yards and a touchdown as well for him. Good stat line there. And then we go to the receivers. Deontay Johnson led the team in yards, but it's only because he had the most. I mean, he was thrown to roughly 50 more times than any other player on the team. With 86 receptions for 882 yards, 10.3 average, 0 touchdowns. Again, we went over that and a 1 fumble. George Pickens, 52 receptions for 801 yards. 15.4 average. Pat Freiermuth had 63 receptions for 732 yards, 11.6. Again, George Pickens had the 4 touchdowns. Pat Freiermuth had 2. Chase Claypool had 1 while he was with us for the short time. Najee Harris scored 3 times from receiving. Connor Hayward, here we go, 17 receptions for 151 yards, a 12.6 average, and the 1 touchdown that happened against Atlanta. Almost identical to how his dad scored in the end zone. So crazy to see. And again, if you want to go further down, we can. I'm not overly concerned with it. Zach Gentry
I
got
don't think
involved.
it's really necessary. Sims the only other significant contributor this season. Sims and Gentry. And Gentry had 19 catches on the season.
Yeah, and Derek Watt with the 5 receptions on 5 targets for 1 touchdown. So gotta love that.
Yeah, man, he was in a very efficient player for us this season.
Yeah,
drastically increased role, even though it's still not a significant number of touches, right? But very, very successful in those touches. So got to be very appreciative of his efforts, no doubt about that.
Yeah. So Miles Jack led the team in total tackles with 104. Sorry, cat's being crazy behind me. 104 tackles, 96 for Minkah Fitzpatrick, and 81 for Devin Bush. That rounds up the top 3 guys. Sack leaders, you obviously know who's number 1. That's be Alex Highsmith with 14.5. Cameron Hayward came in at 10.5, and then TJ Watt at only 5.5. Again, rough year for him. You had a couple guys sitting at 2, including one Terrell Edmonds. We're not going to talk about it.
And Arthur Mollett. And this is why we think that Pittsburgh's going to address the defensive line early in the draft. I think first or second round, one of those first 3 picks is going to be a defensive lineman, because you did not get enough out of the other defensive lineman not named Cam Hayward, not even close.
Yeah.
Especially when Larry Ogunjobi had 1.5 on the season, and 1 came in this game, and it was a definite face mask.
Yeah. Not even
down
close.
by the helmet. So he had a half sack that was legitimate on the season. That one shouldn't even count on that.
And I want to point this out real quick, because I think this matters for the legitimacy of podcasting and reporting on teams. We're not just always going to root for the Steelers to have higher stats. When we talked about TJ Watt last year should have broken the NFL sack record, it's because he should have, and they didn't count a play as a sack. We're telling you right now, Larry Ogunjobi, as a Pittsburgh Steeler, should have only had a half sack because 1 should not have counted because of a face mask. We can admit that. Just trying to balance the reporting here, that we're not always just for the numbers and just for the Steelers. When we make mistakes or things happen, we understand that, the opposite way. Interception leaders on the team: Minkah with 6, Levi with 4, Cameron Sutton with 3, and then TJ Watt had 2, and they were both freakish interceptions, to say the least.
Oh boy, were they?
And then only because there's a short list after that: Demonte Casey with 2, James Pierre, Killer Witherspoon, and Arthur Mollett all with 1.
Did we cover the forced fumbles already?
No, I did not go over forced fumbles yet.
Okay, so Alex Highsmith, 5 forced fumbles on the season. Last I knew, he was one of the leaders in the entire NFL. Don't know if he ended up winning that title or not, but he would have been one of the top ones if he did not win that. And then a bunch of guys with 1: TJ Watt, Arthur Mollett, Cam Hayward, Tay Crowder, but he didn't get with the Steelers, and then Chris Wormley as well.
Yep.
So that's all your turnover guys on the season.
We definitely take that. And then I'm not going to go over special teams per se. I mean, I'll go over Boswell. I'm not going to go. We kind of talked about how Presley Harvin had a better second half of the season than this and that. Chris Boswell was 18 extra points made and 20 field goals, 78 points total. Again, I don't have his specific stat line, but they just go over scoring on here. You have that?
I got you 20 of 28 on the field goals and perfect 18 of 18 on extra points.
Perfect.
So a little bit struggling on his field goal percentage this year in comparison to previous years. Usually only misses a couple of field goals.
Yeah.
But perfect on extra points. So
So again, to break this down, Pittsburgh started off the season with a win at Cincinnati, a team coming off a Super Bowl loss. We won only by 3 points, and then we went on to lose 4 straight. 3 games against AFC East teams and 1 against a division rival, Cleveland Browns. We got a lucky win, in my opinion, against Tampa Bay. Tom Brady And then we lost 2 straight before going into the bye week against Miami and Philadelphia. After the bye week, Pittsburgh turned it around. We talked about this. We beat New Orleans. We did lose to Cincinnati in another close game, only by 7 points. Pittsburgh put up 30 points for, I believe, the only time in the entire regular season against Cincinnati and still lost. And then you had 2 wins at Indianapolis and at Atlanta on the road. That was great. We lost to Baltimore the first time we played them, 16-14, a 2-point game. That's kind of what you expect. And then we went on a little winning streak at the end at Carolina, 24-16 versus the Raiders by 3, 13-10 against Baltimore. What, 4-game win streak? Did I say 3?
4 in a row, man. That's a beautiful way to end the year.
And then we beat Baltimore 16-13 again, coming back and beating a division rival, and then coming back and beating Cleveland after we lost to them early this season. This is where James and I talk about the momentum going into next season. You saw the team turn it around late in the season. You saw the improvement from the offensive line, from Kenny Pickett, from a lot of areas and players and things. Alex Highsmith having a phenomenal year. Minka being Minka. The only downfall of this, in my opinion, is Deontay. Deontay just kind of stayed Deontay all year long. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, but it is what it is. So I am excited for next year.
Because you went into the year thinking wide receiver was one of your strongest positions, and the end of the year saying wide receiver is one of the biggest question marks.
Yep, because we trade Chase Claypool away.
Yeah,
Deontay's Deontay, and you lost Calvin Austin III before he even had a chance to step on the field.
Yep, never got a chance even at a preseason game. So very interested to see how the offseason shakes up there. I won't be surprised if Pittsburgh adds another draft pick at wide receiver just to get some depth back going in that room, man. You look forward absolutely to seeing what we have in Calvin Austin III, but it's tough to say that he's a guaranteed thing. And there's a big question mark at the number 3 wide receiver. Steven Sims really put a nice effort in late in the season. Not enough, in my opinion, to cement him in any way. As
not to cement. To cement him coming back, absolutely. He'll be back.
Yeah, he should make the team, absolutely. I agree 100% on that. Gunnar Olszewski should be worried about making the team next year.
Yep.
Especially if they bring in a wide receiver in the top 3 rounds. That's going to bode poorly for him. And then Boykin's a free agent. And I think next week we'll probably talk about the free agent list, give you guys an idea what's going on there and really jump into that. I don't want to turn this into a 1 hour long show here.
It's already there. It's already there.
Yeah, we're probably getting close as it is. So let's get into the draft status that we know now and wrap up today's show. So with all the teams that are eliminated, we do know Pittsburgh's draft picks currently are. So the first round pick will be the number 17 overall pick. We got a huge assist from the Houston Texans and Chicago Bears, and now Pittsburgh holds the first pick in the second round due to the Bears losing and the Houston Texans unexplainably winning, costing themselves the first overall pick. But this is that opportunity we talked about for the last couple of weeks now. If this were to somehow happen, Pittsburgh holding that first pick in the second round, which is technically the 32nd pick due to the Dolphins and their transgressions. A lot of times teams after the end of the first round will give up the farm to get that first pick in the second round and get that one guy that they can't believe didn't go in the first round, that they were sure was going to go in the top 20 picks, and he's somehow still there. They'll give up all kinds of picks to try to get to that spot. So that could be a huge opportunity for trade back, gaining a lot of capital and really helping build a deep team in the future. And then that final second round pick is at number 49. So that's 3 picks in the top 50.
Yeah.
Incredible for Pittsburgh. They've never had this as long as I've been a Steelers fan, I don't think. In real opportunity at 17, I think you could see the top tight end still be there. One of the top interior defensive linemen that could play opposite Cam Hayward could still be there. Oftentimes at 17, the top interior offensive lineman has not been selected yet. You could take the best guard/center talent in the whole draft at 17. So there could be some real opportunities to get best player at a position at that point in the draft. And oftentimes best safety isn't picked yet by them too.
Yep. So we'll keep an eye on this. We'll keep you guys in the loop with what we're doing. Again, this officially kind of starts our off season, knowing that we are not in the playoffs. We will still give up-to-date news about the NFL and the playoffs. We'll do that briefly on Mondays as we continue to move forward. Fridays are going to be available just in case of a special podcast. If something happens that's newsworthy, breaking news, we still will push out episodes on Friday. If nothing happens throughout the week that we don't think we have enough or enough reason to put an episode on Friday, you still can expect these episodes every single Monday throughout the offseason.
Absolutely.
So we're super excited. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe and ring the bell. It's free. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.